The email notification pinged on my phone at exactly 8:47 p.m. on October 15th, 2024, 7 minutes before the series finale of Dragon's Crown was set to premiere on Netflix. I watched the clock tick down as I sat in my studio apartment, my finger hovering over the confirm cancellation button. Somewhere across town, in the penthouse apartment I'd helped pay for, my sister Vivian was probably gathering her influencer friends for her legendary watch party, the one she'd been promoting for weeks to her 2.3 million followers. The one where she'd promised live reactions, exclusive commentary, and behind-the-scenes gossip about the show that had consumed the internet for the past 6 months. I pressed the button. The screen flashed. Your subscription has been canceled. You will have access until 8:53 p.m. tonight. Perfect timing. I'd done the math. The episode would start buffering right at the moment the Dragon Queen made her entrance in the opening scene. Right when Vivian would be going live to 50,000 viewers, her phone cameras pointed at her 85-inch TV screen, the one I'd helped her buy with my credit card, naturally. You might think I'm petty. You'd be right. But here's the thing about dying and being reborn with all your memories intact. You learn very quickly which battles are worth fighting and which sisters are worth saving. This time around, I chose myself. The first time I lived through October 15th, 2024, I was in a hospital bed, my liver failing from the vitamins Vivian had been giving me for the past 6 months. Those weren't supplements to help with my exhaustion. They were slow-acting poison, carefully dosed to look like natural organ failure. She'd learned about it from one of her true crime documentary binges, and I'd been too stupid, too trusting, too much of a doormat to question why my beloved older sister suddenly cared about my health. I died 3 days later, alone, because Vivian told our mother I was being dramatic about feeling sick and just wanted attention. Mom believed her, of course. She always believed Vivian. Then I woke up on my 23rd birthday, January 3rd, 2024, gasping for air in my childhood bedroom, my body healthy, my mind sharp, and my memory absolutely crystal clear about the 10 months that were about to unfold. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the family dynamics that created a monster and her willing victim. I'm Emma Chen, currently 23 years old for the second time. Vivian is my half-sister, 3 years older, and the golden child of our family by virtue of being beautiful, charismatic, and sociopathic. We share a mother, Linda Chen, who had me with her first husband, a kind man who died in a car accident when I was 2. She married Vivian's father, Richard Walsh, when I was 4, and from that moment on, I became the invisible child. Richard made his feelings about me clear from day one. I was baggage, an unfortunate reminder of my mother's past. He treated Vivian like a princess and me like an unpaid servant. My mother, desperate to keep her second marriage intact and dazzled by the comfortable lifestyle Richard provided, went along with it. More than that, she actively participated in my erasure. Growing up, Vivian got ballet lessons, piano lessons, art classes, and summer camps in Europe. I got hand-me-downs and lectures about being grateful for the roof over my head. Vivian got a Sweet 16 party that cost $50,000. I got a birthday dinner at Olive Garden where everyone forgot to sing to me because they were too busy discussing Vivian's college applications. When Vivian wanted to go to USC for film and media studies, Richard wrote a check for $300,000 without blinking. When I got accepted to Berkeley for software engineering, on full scholarship, mind you, my mother asked if I really needed to go to such an expensive area and wouldn't community college be more practical. I went anyway. I worked 3 jobs, lived in a closet-sized room with 2 roommates, and graduated summa cum laude. Vivian partied her way through USC, changed majors 4 times, barely graduated, and immediately declared she was going to be a content creator and influencer. My mother called it finding herself. I called it what it was, unemployment with a ring light. But here's where it gets truly twisted. Despite everything, despite the years of neglect, the casual cruelty, the blatant favoritism, I still loved them. Or at least I loved the idea of them. I kept thinking that if I just proved myself enough, worked hard enough, was successful enough, they'd finally see me, value me, love me back. So when I landed a 6-figure job at a major tech company at 22, I was thrilled. Not just for myself, but because I thought finally, I'd earned their respect. Instead, I became their ATM. It started small. Vivian needed $500 for a new camera lens. Mom needed $1,000 to fix her car. Richard's business had a temporary cash flow problem. Could I loan him $5,000? It would be paid back in a month, they promised. I never saw any of it again. But I kept giving because that's what love looked like in my family. Me bleeding myself dry while they held out their cups and complained about how slowly I bled. By the time I was 23, I was paying for Vivian's apartment, $3,200 a month. Her car payment, $650. Her health insurance, $400. And giving my mother $2,000 monthly for household expenses, even though I hadn't lived at home in 5 years. I was also covering random emergencies that popped up weekly. A medical bill here, a shopping spree there, a last-minute flight to New York because Vivian needed to network. I was making $125,000 a year and living in a studio apartment that cost $1,800 a month, eating ramen, and having panic attacks about my credit card debt. Meanwhile, Vivian's Instagram feed showed her at five-star restaurants, luxury spas, and designer boutiques, all tagged with #blessed and living, my best life, #gratitude. The Netflix account was just one of many little things she used. My Spotify, my Amazon Prime, my HBO Max, my Hulu. She had all my passwords because we're sisters, we share everything. She changed the profiles, kicked me off devices, and once even changed my Netflix password and then acted confused when I asked about it. Oh my God, Emma, stop being so paranoid. I would never do that. You probably just forgot it. I believed her. I apologized. I reset the password and gave her the new one. In my first life, the Netflix account thing seemed so insignificant. Sure, it annoyed me when I couldn't watch my shows because too many devices were logged in, and yes, it stung when I saw her tweeting about binge-watching series I'd added to my list, but never got to watch because she was always using my account. But it was just Netflix, right? Not worth fighting over. Except it wasn't about Netflix. It was never about Netflix. It was about the fact that Vivian felt entitled to everything I had, everything I earned, everything I was. She didn't see me as a person with my own wants and needs. She saw me as an extension of herself, a resource to be exploited, a tool to maintain her lifestyle. And when I started to push back, gently, tentatively, because I was still trying to be the good sister, she decided I needed to be eliminated. The poisoning started in March of my first life, right after I told Vivian I couldn't afford to pay her rent anymore. I'd been so nervous, had rehearsed the conversation 100 times. I tried to be kind about it, suggested she get a part-time job, offered to help her budget. She cried. She called me selfish. She said I was jealous of her success and trying to sabotage her dreams. She hung up on me. My mother called 10 minutes later. Emma, how could you? Your sister needs you, and you're going to abandon her? After everything this family has done for you? I caved. I always caved. But Vivian didn't forget that I'd tried to set a boundary. She couldn't have me getting ideas about having my own life, my own money, my own identity, separate from her needs. The vitamins appeared 2 weeks later. She brought them to my apartment with tears in her eyes, apologizing for the fight, saying she'd been stressed and took it out on me. She'd bought these supplements, she said, because she noticed I looked tired. She'd done so much research, and these were going to help with my energy levels and immune system. I was so touched, so pathetically grateful that my sister cared. I took them every day like a good girl, like a trusting fool. By May, I was exhausted all the time. By June, I was jaundiced. By July, my doctor was concerned about my liver enzymes. By August, I was in the hospital, and by October, I was dead. Vivian visited me once during my hospitalization. She cried beautifully, took a selfie with me in the background, blurred out for privacy, and posted it with a long caption about how hard it is to watch a loved one suffer and how we need to cherish every moment. It got 45,000 likes. She spent my funeral on her phone, live tweeting her grief. My mother comforted her while Richard complained about the cost of the service. None of them cried real tears. None of them seemed to understand that I was actually gone. In my fading consciousness as the machines beeped and my mother signed the papers to remove life support, 3 days earlier than the doctors recommended because Vivian had a brand deal opportunity she couldn't miss, I had one last crystalline thought. I wasted my entire life trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it. And then I died. And then I woke up on January the 3rd, 2024, 23 years old, healthy, alive, and absolutely done with being a victim. The rebirth wasn't gentle. It wasn't a slow realization or a confusing dream. One moment, I was feeling my heart stop in a hospital bed, and the next, I was gasping awake in my childhood bedroom, tangled in my old unicorn sheets, with my mother banging on my door telling me to hurry up because we were going to brunch for my birthday. I knew immediately what had happened. Every moment of the next 10 months was laid out in my memory like a roadmap. I knew every conversation, every betrayal, every poison pill waiting for me. I also knew exactly how to avoid it all, but avoidance wasn't enough. Not this time. This time, I wanted justice. I wanted revenge. I wanted them to feel even a fraction of the pain they'd caused me. More than that, I wanted them to lose everything they'd stolen from me, everything they'd taken for granted, everything they thought was their birthright to exploit. I lay in that bed, my heart pounding, my mind racing, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to try to make them understand or see the error of their ways. People like Vivian don't change. People like my mother don't suddenly develop empathy. People like Richard don't magically start valuing the stepdaughter they've always seen as less than. No, I was going to be strategic, patient, calculating. I was going to give them exactly what they wanted from me, right up until the moment I pulled every rug out from under their feet at once. The brunch was excruciating. Vivian talked about herself for 90 minutes straight, barely acknowledging it was my birthday. My mother kept checking her phone. Richard read the newspaper. When the bill came, Richard made a show of pulling out his wallet before sliding it to me with a smile. "You're treating us, right? Birthday girl's privilege." In my first life, I'd paid. I'd been honored to pay, actually, because I was so desperate for any crumb of inclusion. This time, I smiled sweetly and said, "Actually, I'm a bit short this month, but it's so generous of you to take us all out, Richard. Thank you so much." His face went red, but he couldn't refuse without looking bad in front of the restaurant. He paid. He was furious, I could tell, but I didn't care. Vivian pulled me aside in the parking lot. What was that about? You embarrassed Richard." "Did I?" I blinked innocently. "I just assumed since he offered, he was paying. Isn't that what you're supposed to do when you take someone out for their birthday?" She stared at me, trying to figure out if I was being passive-aggressive or genuinely naive. I'd spent 23 years perfecting my doormat persona. She couldn't imagine I'd grown a spine overnight. "Whatever," she finally said. "Hey, I need to talk to you about something. Can I come over later?" I knew what she wanted. In my first life, this was when she'd asked me to co-sign a lease on a more expensive apartment. I'd done it naturally and ended up liable for $30,000 when she stopped paying rent 6 months later. "Sure," I said. "Come by around 7. She never showed. She texted at 8:30 p.m. saying something came up and could she just have the co-signed documents sent to me to sign? She'd totally explain everything later. I responded, "Let's talk about it in person. I want to understand all the details before I sign anything financial. How about coffee this weekend?" She never brought it up again. She found someone else to scam. That was my first small victory. It felt incredible. Over the next 3 months, I systematically began extracting myself from their financial web while appearing to be more connected than ever. The trick was to never say no directly. I became a master of "let me check my budget, Mayasin. I need to talk to my financial advisor. Let me get back to you on that." And my personal favorite, "I'm so sorry, but I just had an unexpected expense come up." To Vivian and my mother, it looked like I was having money troubles. They pitied me, which meant they didn't suspect I was pulling away intentionally. They thought I was failing, getting poor, becoming even more pathetic than usual. Perfect. What I was actually doing was saving every penny I'd been sending their way. By April, I had $15,000 in an emergency fund, money that in my first life had gone to Vivian's business expenses, a new laptop, a ring light, professional photo shoots that somehow never led to actual income. I also started documenting everything. Every text asking for money, every guilt trip, every promise to pay me back. I created a spreadsheet of every dollar I'd given them over the years in my first life, and I was determined not to repeat those mistakes. But I didn't just want to save myself this time. I wanted to destroy them. The opportunity came in early May, right on schedule, when Vivian asked for my Netflix password. In my first life, I'd given it to her without a second thought. She'd taken over the account completely, changed all the profiles to her friends' names, maxed out the screen limits, and used it as a bragging point in her influencer circles. My sister is so generous. She gives me access to everything, she'd post, making herself look good while making me invisible. This time, when she asked, I saw it for what it was, the first test of whether I'd learned my lesson about boundaries. Of course, I said warmly. I just upgraded to the premium plan, so there's plenty of room. Her face lit up. She hadn't expected it to be that easy. I gave her the password. I watched her log in. I smiled as she immediately changed her profile to Vivian and added 3 of her friends. And then I did something she would never expect. I carefully monitored exactly how she used my account. Over the next 5 months, I watched Vivian's viewing habits like a hawk. She was predictable, which made sense. Everything about her was performative. She didn't watch shows because she enjoyed them. She watched shows so she could post about them, so she could be part of the cultural conversation, so she could feel important. In late May, a new fantasy series called Dragon's Crown dropped on Netflix. It was based on a best-selling book series and had been hyped for years. The marketing was everywhere. The budget was enormous. The cast was A-list. Everyone was talking about it. Vivian was obsessed. She live-tweeted the first episode. She posted reaction videos. She created TikToks analyzing the costumes and predicting plot twists. She joined online forums and Discord servers. She built an entire segment of her personal brand around being the #1 Dragon's Crown superfan. Her follower count exploded. She went from 400,000 followers to 2.3 million over the course of the summer, riding the wave of the show's popularity. Brands started reaching out. She got sponsorship deals. She was invited to podcast interviews and YouTube collaborations. She owed it all to that show, and she was watching it all on my Netflix account. The series was scheduled to have its finale on October 15th, 10 months after the first episode premiered. By October, the entire internet was buzzing. Theories were flying, fan wars were raging. It was the cultural event of the year. Vivian had been planning her finale watch party for weeks. She'd promoted it everywhere. She'd promised her followers exclusive content, live reactions, and insider commentary from some of the show's producers. She'd lied about knowing them, naturally. She'd turned it into a ticketed virtual event, $25 per person for access to her private live stream. Over 2,000 people had bought tickets. She was going to make $50,000 in one night, all by watching the finale of a show on my Netflix account and giving her opinions about it. In my first life, I'd watched her do it. I'd been in the hospital at that point, dying, and she'd posted photos from the party with captions about how she was pushing through pain to show up for her community. She didn't visit me once during that week, but she posted about me. Vague, posted about having a sick family member and how hard it was. To stay positive, she'd made $50,000 while I died, and she'd used my Netflix account to do it. This time was going to be different, because in this life, I'd been planning too, and my plan was so much better than hers. The poison came in June, right on schedule. Vivian showed up at my apartment unannounced, which she did constantly because she still saw my space as an extension of her own access. She had tears in her eyes and apology gifts, including a bottle of premium vitamins that had cost her $80, she said, because she loved me so much and wanted me to be healthy. I took them with gratitude, thanked her profusely, and the moment she left, I photographed the bottle from every angle, documented the lot number, and then threw every single pill in the trash. Then I went to 3 different supplement stores and bought bottles that looked similar. Every day, I took photos of myself taking the vitamins, actually just holding them to my mouth, and sent them to Vivian with cheerful updates about how much better I was feeling. These are amazing. I have so much more energy. You were right about these vitamins, V. I feel incredible. I'm so lucky to have a sister who cares about my health. She ate it up. She'd check in constantly. Are you still taking them? You're taking them every day, right? Don't skip days. I knew what she was doing. She was monitoring how long it would take for me to show symptoms. She was waiting for me to get sick, but I wasn't going to get sick. Not this time. Instead, I did something far more useful with those vitamins. I took them to a private lab and had them tested. It cost me $2,500, but it was worth every penny. The results came back in 3 weeks. Heavy metal poisoning, specifically thallium sulfate, carefully dosed to accumulate slowly in the system and cause symptoms that mimicked natural liver disease. I had evidence. Scientific, documented, unquestionable evidence that my sister was trying to murder me. I didn't go to the police, not yet, because I knew exactly how that would play out. Vivian would cry and say she didn't know, that she'd bought them from a health store, that it must have been a manufacturing error. My mother would defend her. Richard would hire the best lawyers. They'd make me look paranoid, vindictive, jealous. No, I needed to wait for the perfect moment. I needed to destroy all of them at once in a way they couldn't escape or explain away. I needed an audience. By September, all the pieces were falling into place. Vivian was at the height of her influencer career, riding high on Dragon's Crown fame. She'd quit her part-time job, the one I didn't know she'd had in my first life, and was doing content creation full-time. She'd moved into an even more expensive apartment. Not on my dime this time, but on credit cards she'd taken out using my mother as a co-signer. My mother was enabling everything, of course. She saw Vivian as her retirement plan, I think. She'd already quit her administrative job to be Vivian's manager, which meant she sat around all day booking sponsorships and taking 20% of Vivian's earnings. Richard's business was struggling, something I only learned about in my first life after I was dead and couldn't help. He was hemorrhaging money, making bad investments, and was about 3 months from bankruptcy. In my first life, they'd drained my savings to save him. This time, I'd made sure they couldn't access my money. Everything was primed for collapse. They just didn't know it yet. I spent September preparing for the finale. My finale, not the show's. I created a Twitter account under a pseudonym and slowly, carefully, began building a following by posting thoughtful commentary about Dragon's Crown. I engaged with fan communities. I built relationships with other viewers. By October, I had 5,000 followers who trusted my opinions. I also quietly reached out to 3 investigative journalists who specialized in influencer fraud and social media scams. I didn't give them the full story yet, just enough to make them interested, to make them start watching Vivian's accounts. And I watched Vivian's viewing habits. I knew her schedule better than she did. I knew she watched Dragon's Crown every Sunday at 8 p.m. sharp. I knew she rewatched episodes on Wednesdays. I knew she'd been rewatching the entire series for the past 2 weeks in preparation for the finale. Everything was in place. On October 14th, I sent one final text to Vivian. "Hey, are you excited for tomorrow? I can't wait to see how it ends." She responded immediately. "OMG, yes! The watch party is going to be insane. I have over 2,000 ticket holders. This is going to be my biggest night ever." I replied, "I so happy for you. You deserve all the success." I meant it in a way. She absolutely deserved what was coming. October 15th, 2024. The day I died in my first life. The day I'd been reborn to witness again. The day everything changed. I woke up at 6 a.m., calm and focused. I had a full day planned and every minute needed to be perfect. First, I went to my bank and withdrew $10,000 in cash, part of the money I'd saved by not funding Vivian's lifestyle. I put it in an envelope marked emergency fund and stored it in my safe. I didn't think I'd need it, but I believed in backup plans. Second, I went to a lawyer's office and filed paperwork I'd been preparing for weeks. A formal cease and desist letter demanding Vivian remove all content featuring me from her social media, a legal notice that I was not responsible for any of her debts, and a statement revoking any implied permission for her to use my identity or likeness for profit. Third, I had lunch with a friend from college who worked at a tech startup. I didn't tell her what I was planning, but I did casually mention that if she heard any news about me in the next few days, it was all true and I was okay. She looked confused, but promised to check in with me later. Fourth, at 3 p.m., I sent an email from my anonymous account to the 3 journalists I'd been courting. The subject line read, "Influencer fraud exposed, Vivian Walsh and the stolen Netflix account scheme." In the body, I laid out everything. Screenshots of Vivian using my Netflix account, evidence that she'd built her entire Dragon's Crown brand on access to content she didn't pay for, screenshots of her selling tickets to a watch party for content she was accessing illegally. Documentation of her other schemes, using my Amazon Prime to get free shipping for products she then resold, using my Spotify family plan to offer exclusive playlist access to her Patreon subscribers, and most damning, the lab results proving the vitamins she'd given me were poisoned, along with screenshots of every text she'd sent asking if I was taking them. I didn't include my identity yet. I presented it as a concerned friend of the victim who wanted to expose fraud. I gave them until 9 p.m. to respond if they wanted an exclusive interview with the victim herself. All three responded within an hour. They were interested, very interested. Fifth, at 6:00 p.m., I logged into my Netflix account and changed the email address and password. I removed all of Vivian's devices. I deleted all of her profiles. I made sure she was completely locked out. Then I canceled the subscription, effective at 8:53 p.m. And then I waited. At 7:30 p.m., my phone started buzzing. Vivian. Hey, did you change the Netflix password? I can't log in. I didn't respond. Vivian. Emma, I need the password now. The party starts in 30 minutes. I didn't respond. Vivian. This isn't funny. Give me the password. I didn't respond. At 7:45, she called. I didn't answer. She called 6 more times. I silenced my phone. At 8:00 p.m., she texted, I'm going to fucking kill you. Interesting choice of words given the circumstances. By 8:15, my mother was calling. I let it go to voicemail. Emma, whatever game you're playing, stop it right now. Your sister has an important event tonight and you're being incredibly selfish. Call me back immediately. I deleted the voicemail. At 8:30, Richard called. I answered this time. Emma, I don't know what your problem is, but you need to give Vivian the Netflix password right now. She has business obligations. It's not her Netflix account, I said calmly. It's mine, and I canceled it. You what? I canceled my subscription. It's my account, my money, and my decision. She can get her own if she needs one. You spoiled little bitch, he was sputtering. Do you have any idea how much money is on the line tonight? She has ticket holders. She has sponsors. Then she should have paid for her own account. We have given you everything. We raised you. We clothed you. We fed you. And this is how you repay us? By sabotaging your sister out of petty jealousy? I almost laughed. He'd never given me anything. He'd actively taken from me. I'm done being her resource, I said. She can figure it out herself. I hung up. At 8:47, the subscription officially ended. I turned on my computer and navigated to Twitter, where I pulled up Vivian's account. She'd been tweeting all day about the party, building hype, promising the best night ever. At 8:50, she posted, technical difficulties, but we'll be starting soon. So sorry, guys. At 8:53, the episode started. I'd pirated it earlier in the day. I wasn't going to miss it myself after all, and I watched it on my laptop while monitoring Vivian's social media meltdown in real time. At 8:55, still working on it, bear with me. At 9, guys, I'm so sorry, there's been a massive tech failure and I can't get the stream working. Refunds will be issued. I'm devastated. The comments were brutal. Are you kidding me right now? I took off work for this. Scam artist. This is so unprofessional. I want my money back now. Her follower count started dropping, first by hundreds, then by thousands. At 9:15, one of the journalists went live with the story. The headline, influencer Vivian Walsh built 2M aunt following on stolen Netflix account, allegedly poisoned sister to protect secret. The article had everything, screenshots, lab results, testimonials from people I'd quietly been in touch with who'd also been scammed by Vivian in various ways. Old roommates she'd stolen from, former friends she'd exploited, brands she'd deceived. The internet exploded. Within an hour, Vivian was trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. Hashtag Vivian Walsh. For party, hot Netflix scammer, hot poison sister. Her sponsors started dropping her immediately. Her management company released a statement saying they were terminating their relationship effective immediately. Her Discord server went into chaos as moderators quit en masse. At 10:30, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Is this Emma Chen? Yes. This is Detective Sarah Martinez with the LAPD. I need to talk to you about some lab results that were published online tonight regarding a potential poisoning case. Of course, I said. I've been waiting for someone to take this seriously. What followed was the most satisfying month of my life. The police investigation moved quickly with the lab results as evidence and my testimony. They obtained a warrant for Vivian's apartment. They found the receipt for the vitamins. She'd been stupid enough to buy them with her credit card and keep the receipt in her important documents folder. They found her search history. How to poison someone slowly. Symptoms of thallium poisoning. How long does it take for liver failure to kill someone? She'd been careless because she'd never imagined she'd get caught. She'd thought I was too pathetic, too trusting, too eager for her love to ever fight back. She was arrested on October 18th for attempted murder. The video of her being led out of her apartment in handcuffs went viral. She was crying, screaming that it was a misunderstanding, that her sister was lying, that she was being framed. No one believed her. The evidence was overwhelming. My mother tried to defend her, naturally. She gave an interview to a local news station talking about what a good person Vivian was, how close our family was, how I must be mentally ill to make such accusations. That's when I released the second wave. Every text message, every voicemail, every email documenting years of financial abuse, favoritism, and neglect. I posted them on my new public Twitter account, no longer anonymous, with a thread that went viral within hours. My name is Emma Chen. My sister Vivian Walsh tried to murder me. But before that, my family spent 23 years systematically abusing and exploiting me. Here's the proof. I showed everything. The messages demanding money, my mother calling me selfish for setting boundaries, Richard's verbal abuse, the credit cards they'd opened in my name without permission. I found those records while preparing my case. The loans I'd co-signed that they'd defaulted on. The tide turned completely. People were horrified. Support poured in from strangers around the world who'd lived through similar family dynamics. Survivors of abuse reached out to thank me for speaking up. Advocacy organizations asked if they could use my story to raise awareness. My mother's employer, she'd gone back to work after Vivian's arrest, fired her after the tweets went viral. They didn't want the association with someone who'd enabled attempted murder. Richard's business, already failing, completely collapsed. His investors pulled out after seeing his name connected to the scandal. He filed for bankruptcy by the end of November. As for the Netflix account thing, it became the most famous part of the story. Late-night talk shows made jokes about it. Memes spread across the internet. Netflix itself released a statement saying they were deeply disturbed by the case and were reviewing their terms of service regarding account sharing and fraud. The show Dragon's Crown became known as that show the Poison Sister was obsessed with. The series creators released a statement condemning Vivian and expressing support for me. They offered me a cameo in the upcoming season 2 if I wanted it. I declined. I'd had enough of that show for one lifetime. Vivian's trial was in January 2025. She pleaded not guilty, of course. Her defense strategy was to paint me as a jealous, mentally unstable sister who'd fabricated everything because I was envious of her success. It didn't work. The prosecution had the lab results, they had her search history, they had her purchase records, they had testimony from the store clerk who sold her the vitamins and remembered her specifically because she'd asked detailed questions about how undetectable thallium was. She was convicted of attempted murder, fraud, and identity theft for the credit cards. The judge sentenced her to 18 years in prison with a recommendation for no early parole. She screamed when the sentence was read. She pointed at me in the gallery and shouted, "This is your fault. You ruined my life. I hate you." I felt nothing. No sadness, no guilt, no satisfaction even. Just a sense of closure. My mother attended every day of the trial, sitting behind Vivian, glaring at me as if I were the villain. She never once acknowledged what Vivian had done. She never once asked if I was okay. After the sentencing, she approached me in the courthouse hallway. "I hope you're happy," she hissed. "You destroyed your sister's life over a Netflix account." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. This woman had given birth to me, but she'd never been a mother. She'd been an enabler, a participant in my abuse, a person so desperate to maintain her comfortable life that she'd sacrificed her own daughter without a second thought. "She tried to kill me," I said quietly. She poisoned me. She planned my death, and you still think I'm the problem. She wouldn't have done any of that if you'd just been a good sister. If you'd just helped her like family is supposed to help. I almost felt sorry for her. She genuinely believed this. In her mind, I'd committed the greater sin by refusing to be endlessly exploited. "Goodbye, Linda," I said, using her first name intentionally. "I won't be seeing you again." I walked away. She screamed after me. Something about how I'd regret this, how I'd end up alone, how blood is supposed to mean something. Blood didn't mean anything to me anymore. Not when it came from people who'd used familial obligation as a weapon against me. The civil suits came next. I sued Vivian for every penny she'd taken from me over the years, not just the money she'd asked for, but the money she'd stolen via identity theft and fraud. The judgment was $340,000. She had no assets. She'd been living on credit, sponsorships, and my money. There was nothing to collect. But I didn't care about actually getting the money. I cared about the judgment existing on paper, a permanent record that she owed me everything. I sued my mother and Richard for their roles in the financial abuse. That case was harder to prove, but my lawyer was good. We settled out of court. They signed over any claim to my future assets, agreed to never contact me again, and paid my legal fees. Richard had to sell the house, the one I'd paid the mortgage on for 6 months in my first life. They moved into a small apartment in a bad neighborhood. My mother got a job as a receptionist. Richard worked at a car dealership. I heard through mutual acquaintances that they blamed me for their downfall. They told people I was a liar, that Vivian was innocent, that I'd orchestrated everything because I was jealous. No one believed them. By March 2025, my life had transformed completely. The publicity from the case had unexpected benefits. A literary agent reached out asking if I'd consider writing a memoir. A production company wanted to option my story for a limited series. A major tech company, not my current employer, recruited me for a senior engineering position with a 40% salary increase. I took the job. I moved to Seattle, far away from Los Angeles and all its toxic memories. I found a therapist who specialized in family trauma and complex PTSD. Twice a week, I sat in her office and unpacked 23 years of abuse, grief, and self-betrayal. It was hard work, but for the first time in my life, I was doing it for myself, not to fix myself for someone else's benefit. I started dating, casually at first, then more seriously. It was terrifying to trust people, to believe that someone might want me for me and not for what I could provide. But I worked through it. I made real friends, people who celebrated my successes without jealousy, who supported me without expecting payment, who saw me as a whole person worthy of respect and love. I bought a condo, small but mine. No one had keys but me. No one could show up unannounced and demand access to my space, my accounts, my life. I changed my phone number and email address. I blocked my entire family on every platform. I made it impossible for them to reach me. Sometimes I wondered if I should feel guilty about that, if I should feel bad about Vivian being in prison, about my mother and Richard losing everything. But then I remembered how I died in my first life, alone, poisoned, unmourned, and the guilt evaporated. They'd made their choices. I'd simply refused to die for them, this time. It's October 15th, 2025 now. 1 year since the finale. 1 year since I canceled the Netflix account and destroyed my sister's life. I'm sitting in my Seattle apartment drinking expensive wine and watching the season 2 premiere of Dragon's Crown on my own Netflix account. The one no one else has access to, the one I pay for with my own money that no one else feels entitled to. The show is fine. I don't have strong feelings about it either way. It's just a show, but watching it feels like a victory lap. A reminder that I survived. That I won. My phone buzzes. It's a message from my therapist. Proud of you for getting through today. Remember, healing isn't linear. Check in tomorrow. I smile and respond, will do, thank you. Another buzz. This one is from Marcus, the guy I've been seeing for 3 months. He's kind, employed, respectful, and has never once asked me for money or access to my streaming accounts. Hey, want to come over for dinner tomorrow? I'm making that pasta you liked. I respond, yes, what can I bring? Just yourself. Just myself. What a concept. I think about the Emma from my first life. The one who died believing she was unlovable, unworthy, only valuable for what she could provide to others. I think about how she spent her last conscious moments regretting that she'd wasted her life trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it. I think about the Emma I am now, the one who learned that love isn't supposed to hurt, that family isn't supposed to exploit you, that self-preservation isn't selfishness. I think about Vivian, sitting in a prison cell, probably still believing she's the victim in all this. I think about my mother and Richard, struggling to pay bills, probably still telling anyone who will listen that I'm the villain. And I feel nothing. No anger, no sadness, no guilt, just peace. I raise my glass to the TV screen as the Dragon's Crown theme song plays. Here's to Rebirth, I say to my empty apartment. And here's to canceling the people who treat you like a subscription service they're entitled to exploit. I drink. The episode is good. I'll probably watch the whole season. On my own account. That I pay for myself. With boundaries that I enforce. And a life that finally belongs to me. Epilogue. 6 months later, April 2026. My memoir, The Sister Who Canceled Me, a story of rebirth, revenge, and taking back my life, hits the New York Times bestseller list at number 2. It stays there for 16 weeks. The production company moves forward with the limited series. I'm hired as a consultant and executive producer. I approve the script, which doesn't pull any punches about the abuse. We cast an unknown actress to play me, someone who actually resembles me rather than a Hollywood Eyes version. The actress playing Vivian is beautiful, charismatic, and utterly chilling. Perfect. Vivian tries to sue me from prison for defamation and unauthorized use of her story. The case is dismissed within weeks. You can't defame someone by telling the truth, and she has no rights to a story where she's the criminal. My mother sends a letter to my publisher claiming I've fabricated everything and demanding the book be pulled from shelves. The publisher's lawyers send her a cease and desist. She backs down immediately. She can't afford a legal battle, and she knows she'd lose anyway. Richard dies of a heart attack in June 2026. My mother sends me a message through a distant cousin, asking if I'll help pay for the funeral expenses. I don't respond. I hear later that they had to go with the cheapest cremation option and no service. I feel a brief pang of something, not quite sadness, but an acknowledgement of waste. He could have been a decent stepfather. He chose not to be. That was his loss, not mine. In August, I get an email from a documentary filmmaker. She's been following my story and has been conducting her own investigation into Vivian. She's found 6 other women who were scammed, manipulated, or abused by my sister over the years. She wants to feature them in a documentary alongside my story. I agree to participate. The documentary, Viral Villain, the true story behind the Netflix murder case, premieres at Sundance in January 2027 and gets picked up by Netflix. The irony is not lost on anyone. It wins an Emmy. Vivian's name becomes synonymous with influencer fraud and family abuse. Psychology professors use her case as a teaching example. True crime podcasts dissect her pathology. She becomes exactly what she always wanted to be, famous, just not in the way she imagined. As for me, I'm thriving. I get promoted to lead engineer at my company. I buy a house in the suburbs with a garden. Marcus and I move in together after extensive couples counseling to make sure I'm ready for that level of commitment and trust. We adopt a dog, a golden retriever named Justice. Yes, I'm aware of how on the nose that name is. I don't care. I start a foundation for survivors of family financial abuse and scapegoating. We provide legal resources, therapy scholarships, and temporary financial assistance for people trying to escape exploitative family situations. In the first year, we helped 247 people. Every single one of them tells me some version of the same story. I thought I was the only one. I thought I was crazy. I thought it was my fault. I tell them what I learned. It's not your fault. It was never your fault. And you deserve better. Some nights, I still have dreams about my first life. I dream about dying in that hospital bed, about the machine beeping, about my mother's face as she signed the papers to let me go. But then I wake up in my house with Marcus sleeping beside me and Justice snoring at the foot of the bed, and I remember that life is over. I got a second chance and I didn't waste it. I used it to save myself, and then I used it to make sure no one could ever treat me that way again. On October 15th, 2026, 2 years since the finale, 2 years since I canceled the Netflix account, I throw a party, not a watch party, just a regular party with my friends, my colleagues, my chosen family. We don't watch Dragon's Crown, we don't talk about Vivian, we don't discuss the trial or the book or any of it. We just exist together, laughing and eating and celebrating the simple joy of being alive and free and surrounded by people who genuinely care about each other. At one point, Marcus pulls me aside and kisses me. Happy cancellation day, he says, because that's what we've started calling it. The anniversary of the day I canceled my Netflix account and, symbolically, canceled my toxic family's access to my life. Happy cancellation day, I respond. Later, when everyone has gone home and the house is quiet, I sit on my porch and look at the stars. I think about the Emma I used to be, the one who thought she had to earn love, who thought she wasn't enough, who died believing she was worthless. I think about the Vivian who exists now, in prison, stripped of her influence and her freedom, facing 17 more years of consequences for her actions. I think about my mother, alone in her small apartment, still probably believing she was the good guy in the story. And I think about myself, the Emma I've become. Strong, boundaried, successful, loved, free. Thank you, I whisper to the universe or fate or whatever force gave me a second chance at life. Thank you for letting me live again. Thank you for letting me get it right this time. The stars don't answer. They don't need to. I already have everything I need. I go inside, lock the door behind me, and go to bed. Tomorrow is just another day, a day where I'll wake up in my own house, work at my dream job, love my partner, play with my dog, and help other people escape the kind of hell I survived. A day where no one will exploit me, use me, or treat me like a resource to be drained. A day where I'll be exactly enough, exactly as I am. And if anyone tries to suggest otherwise, well, I know how to cancel a subscription now, and I'm not afraid to use that skill. The end.